Clash of Champions has come and gone, but things are already building up for Hell in a Cell. After getting wrecked in the ratings by Monday Night Football, how will the WWE try and bounce back on Raw this week? Also, who will win tonight's King of the Ring final? Join us as WrestleMania looks at the good, the bad and the downright ugly from the 16th September 2019 edition of Monday Night Raw, as well as your latest wrestling news. Raw is coming to you from Knoxville, Tennessee, as Renee Young, Michael Cole and Corey Graves are here to call the action. Things start off with the Universal Champion Seth Rollins discussing his loss of the Raw Tag Team titles and putting over Braun Strowman as one of his greatest opponents. He's glad he's not facing him anytime soon. Right now, he has to focus on facing The Fiend at Hell in a Cell, so I guess that's just confirmed. An episode of Firefly Funhouse airs as Bray Wyatt says hello to his future best friend Seth Rollins. Ramblin' Rabbit tells Rollins to run, but Bray says friends forgive, but he never forgets. That might be why he said hello at Clash of Champions, and he may say hello tonight. Seth calls Wyatt sick, and Wyatt says he'll see you in hell. Charlie Caruso interviews Braun Strowman, who says the next person in the ring gets these hands. The newly crowned Raw and SmackDown Tag Team Champions are in the ring, celebrating their respective wins at Clash of Champions. Dolph Ziggler and Robert Roode talked about how no one thought they could win, but then Strowman's music plays as the Revival intercept him on the entrance ramp, brawling with him. Ziggler joins in, but all three men are manhandled as Roode makes a hasty retreat. The first match of the night sees the OC of AJ Styles, Carl Anderson and Luke Gallows versus the Viking Raiders and Cedric Alexander. The Viking Raiders add some much needed muscle to Cedric's team, but AJ Styles makes a blind tag, surprising Alexander with a phenomenal forearm for the win. Next up, a video airs of Carmelo and R-Truth visiting University of Tennessee, where they meet Mayor Glenn Jacobs, aka the Big Red Machine Kane. But R-Truth thinks he's the president. His Honor invites him to ride in a limo, and R-Truth is psyched to ride with the president. It's the King of the Ring finals we never thought we'd get, as Chad Gable takes on Baron Corbin. Now, it's not hard to think of Chad Gable as the underdog going into this match, but he takes the fight to Corbin, going for a failed submission win, but in the end, Corbin finds the strength to win the match, hitting the end of days, and becoming King Corbin. Why? Well, we'll give you another video on that soon. Backstage, the Street Profits are hosting a gender reveal party for Mike and Maria Kanellis' new baby, but Maria not only reveals the baby is a boy, but the daddy is Ricochet, not Mike. Mike slaps Ricochet and challenges him to a match, which you get up next, and Mike is furious with him, but Ricochet tries to reason with him, telling him Maria is lying to him. Ricochet is forced to defend himself, and lands the recoil for the pin. Another loss and a bit of shame for Mike Kanellis. In the ring, Maria tells Mike Ricochet isn't the baby daddy, she just wanted to motivate Mike to more of a man and a wrestler. The real father though is Rusev, but at this point, Mike doesn't care. He doesn't want anything to do with Rusev and tries to escape. However, the Bulgarian brute blocks his escape and beats him up on the way to the ring. With a swift kick, Rusev locks in the accolade for the submission win. We then get back to University, as Kane gives Carmella and R-Truth a tour around the football stadium, introducing Truth to a policeman who the 24/7 champion thinks is RoboCop. Kane reveals the cop is actually a referee, and R-Truth puts two and two together. In his bid to escape, he runs into a goalpost, stunning himself, but Kane manages to cover him for the win and become the new 24/7 champion. We then cut back to Bray Wyatt, who is seen hanging up pictures of Seth Rollins on his wall of friendship. The next match on the card is Rey Mysterio vs Cesaro, as the Rey Mysterio comeback tour continues as Rey hits the 619 and the Code Red for the win. After that, a video segment airs where the Authors of Pain announce their return. Dressed in suits, they say they're here to fight. They wanted MMA, but they were too tough for MMA. Now they want WWE superstars, but no one will fight them because the AOP like to hurt people. Who will rise to their challenge? We're pretty sure we've seen this gimmick before. Anybody remember Southern Justice? Next up, the Women's Tag Team Champions Alexa Bliss and Nikki Cross face Sasha Banks and Bayley in a non-title match. It's the current Tag Team Champions taking on the inaugural Tag Team Champions, and the Boss and Hug connection show that their tag skills are sharp as ever when Banks locks in the Banks statement on Cross for the submission win. After the match, Sasha grabs a chair, but Becky runs in with a chair of her own, but when a chair-wielding Bayley tries to get involved, Charlotte Flair runs in, grabbing the chair from Bayley, to which Banks then demands a match at Hell in a Cell. Hey, come on, we all saw that coming. There's highlights of R-Truth waylaying Kane and regaining the 24/7 title back. Both Truth and Kane come to a truce. Becky Lynch then addresses being fined $10,000 for hitting a WWE referee at Clash of Champions. Hey, how come Owens had to pay $100,000? Well, anyway, Lynch accepts Sasha's challenge and she says she'll destroy her at Hell in a Cell. That should be one hell of a match. Next up, one-on-one women's action as Dana Brooke takes on Lacey Evans, and Evans blasts Brooke with the women's right before applying the sharpshooter for the tap-out win. And now it's time for the main event as Universal Champion Seth Rollins takes on Robert Roode with Dolph Ziggler by his side in a non-title match. Now, despite Ziggler's presence at ringside, Rollins is able to win his way to victory, hitting the blackout and covering Roode before Ziggler breaks up the pin, getting Roode disqualified. The OC run in, attacking Rollins and beating him down with the help of Roode and Ziggler. That is until Kane makes an appearance, coming in for the save. Kane is cleaning house when the lights go out and the Fiend shows up, locking the mandible claw on the Big Red Machine. The Fiend then crawls over to Seth Rollins, who's in the corner, terrified. But that was a quick recap. What about the good, the bad, and the downright ugly? Let's start off with the good as number 1, welcome back. Tonight's show featured some surprise appearances by Kane, the return of Rusev, and the apparent return of the Authors of Pain. The WWE used Kane's return to have fun with R-Truth, then used him to help put the Fiend over, another good move. It remains to be seen whether the WWE will use Rusev or the AOP effectively. Number 2, all hail King Corbin. Now this might not be a good for everybody, but it's a good for us, as Baron Corbin's win over Chad Gable could be a huge step forward for Corbin's career. Be sure to check on the reason why Corbin won in the King of the Ring later on today, but as we know the tournament featured some odd wins, but if it gets Corbin over, it can be considered a success. Number 3, R-Truth continues to entertain. It's hard to think of a better role for R-Truth than the one he's been performing as 24/7 champion. His sense of humor's made this into an entertaining segment whenever he's involved. Somehow, he's managed to keep the belt fresh as well as his weekly escapades to retain or regain it. That was the good. What about the bad is number 1, a hot mess. Raw unfortunately was a hot mess this week, with the show going all over the place despite a solid lead-in from Clash of Champions. Most of the segments had the potential to advance storylines but failed to do so. There was no reason for the women's tag team champions to lose to Banks and Bayley in order to advance Becky vs Banks. Rey Mysterio's win over Cesaro could have just as well have aired on main event considering how dead Mysterio and Cesaro's careers are. The Maria Kanellis gender reveal took too much time, even though it was a good way to bring Rusev back. It wouldn't surprise us if we learned this was another show Vince McMahon wrote while it was airing. Number 2, jobbing Cedric and the Viking Raiders. While the WWE seems to be going down the slow route with building up Cedric Alexander, pairing him with the Viking Raiders did nothing for him or the Raiders. Although Cedric counted the lights, the Viking Raiders looked average against the OC, destroying a lot of the build-up they've had over the past few months. The WWE needs to be more discreet with how it handles potential stars unless they've already given up on the Raiders. Number 2, OC Overload. It's good to see the WWE pushing the OC as formidable opponents, but they were on TV too much tonight, and there was little reason to involve them in the main event other than to justify Kane running in. This was another example of tonight's sloppy booking. Number 4, Seth Rollins, the Cowardly Champion. The WWE is already walking a tightrope as it pits a popular anti-hero The Fiend versus Seth Rollins, a babyface rapidly losing favour with the WWE Universe. Now it's depicted Rollins as deathly afraid of The Fiend, potentially making him less likeable than ever. Hopefully the WWE has an endgame for Rollins where he overcomes his fear, but it could be too late already as the fans jump off the Rollins bandwagon. Number 5, technical difficulties. The WWE has having its problems of late, whether it's a glitch-filled WWE network or tonight's graphics announcing Raw's match. It's good the WWE was previewing matches, but they look better right side up rather than upside down. Thankfully there was nothing too ugly about this show, but still a lot of bads. Let's get straight onto the news, as a fan tried to grab Sasha Banks. Fans are encouraged to participate in wrestling matches with signs and chants, but putting one's hands on a wrestler is a big no-no, especially when it comes to female wrestlers. However, last night's Clash of Champions saw a fan apparently try to grab Sasha Banks while Becky Lynch threw her over the security barrier. There's little information on the incident and what if anything happened to the fan. Naturally, fans are enraged over the incident, but no one more than Sasha Banks, who tweeted, "I'm suing." Next up, there's some interesting information from Triple H's NXT conference call. Triple H met with the reporters via conference call to discuss NXT's big move to the USA Network and its expansion to 2 hours. Here are a few highlights. When asked about the ratings goal for NXT, Triple H said he's shooting for the long term and not the short term. He's not looking to hotshot angles to boost the ratings. Number 2, Triple H said he doesn't even want to think about a 3-hour NXT show and thinks the added hour is the right amount of time. Number 3, when asked about whether NXT stars will be drafted to Raw or SmackDown, the game said he sees NXT as equal to the other brands, but he understands it'll take time for NXT to be perceived the same way as Raw and SmackDown. Triple H says he thinks the draft will largely focus on Raw and SmackDown. Triple H also said he'd love to see Kevin Owens on NXT and doesn't rule out the possibility of NXT UK stars coming to NXT. Next up, brand split or not. With the WWE draft less than a month away, fans are curious on whether the WWE will keep its roster separate once they move various superstars to Raw, SmackDown and NXT. Mike Johnson, a PW Insider, recently shared his thoughts on this, saying, "I was told that the plan, and this could change because let's face it, it's WWE, the plan is that once the draft is set in stone, meaning once this Raw and SmackDown episodes happen, that the rosters will be separated in church and state for at least now. A lot of that had to do with what they want a certain roster for Fox and a certain roster for NBC. That doesn't mean they won't intermingle at some point. Obviously they'll intermingle on pay-per-views, but as they establish the TV shows, they want to make sure that the foundation and the bedstone for each series moving forward is solid." And the last story for today, Big Cass's latest backstage incident. In case you missed it, Big Cass was recently involved in an incident backstage at a WrestlePro event for alleged unprofessional behavior. Police were called, and thankfully for Cass, wrestler Joey Janela was able to talk them out of arresting Cass, and he was taken to a nearby hospital. According to Mike Johnson, "I spoke with several people who are close with Cass who spoke with him yesterday, and basically he had a misstep, and he took a huge step backwards in his personal issues and claimed the next day that he didn't remember much of anything that happened on Saturday, and all we can do is wish him well and hope that things get better for him, because this is the second time now that his issues have brought him into a situation where they manifested themselves in front of the public eye. This is unfortunate for Cass, particularly since he seemed to be on the path of sobriety. But there you have it guys, your Raw recap, the good, the bad and the downright ugly, as well as the latest wrestling news. What are your thoughts on that fan trying to grab Sasha Banks? Should he be punished for his actions? Let us know in the comments down below, subscribe if you haven't already, follow us on Instagram and Twitter, and I'll see you next time with some more wrestling content.